On Tuesday, September 17, 2024, the Henry County Planning and Zoning Group held a public hearing at the courthouse in Mount Pleasant to discuss the Alternative Energy Overlay Ordinance, and a lot of people attended, including yours truly. The courtroom was filled, and there were people obviously from planning and zoning. There were people that were from RWE, the energy company that wants to bring the Industrial Wind Turbine Complex to Henry County. There were people that were for that are already receiving payments from RWE, and there were people that are completely against it. Everybody had a chance to talk, and I've got the 2+ hours of that hearing right here on this episode. And this episode is sponsored by Griner Auto Body of Washington, Iowa, using state-of-the-art techniques and decades of experience to get your car back on the road after an accident. Car Doctor of Washington, Iowa, no matter who Frankensteined it, they can fix and clean and customize it. McDonald Boneyard of Kyoto, Iowa, for all your farm equipment and auto recycling needs. Hinshaw Trailer Sales of Richland, Iowa. You need a trailer? They've got your trailer, and they fix what they sell and don't in their full-time repair shop. Girling Repair of Winfield, Iowa. If your mower is dead, call Fred, your Husqvarna, Aaron's, and Gravely dealer. B&B Propane and the family of Jet Stops. And Blue Dog Lawn Care of Wayland, Iowa, for all of your residential and commercial lawn care needs. And when that snow starts flying around, they take care of that for you as well. They all present Southeast Iowa Today. I'm John Bain, author of Christie's Journey, The Beat Goes On, and your host. Strap in. Hope you've got your favorite beverage, maybe a snack. This is a long one, but it's definitely worth watching.
Meeting to order. We need to review our agenda, through it. And make a motion, and a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Approved.
Aye. Okay. We need to review and approve our last minutes meetings, and those are from January, correct?
Correct. Yes. I'll make a motion.
Okay, we got a motion to approve them. We got a second. All in favor of approve?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, those are approved. All right. Main agenda tonight, let's open up to public hearing. And we're going to do a public hearing and review the recommendations to appeal or replace Title VI, Chapter 2, Section 11, 2 through 6, Alternative Energy Overlay District. Is what the topic is.
Need a motion to go into public hearing.
We got a motion to go into public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Who's our first speaker?
Our first speaker is Melanie Patton.
Barb's not here, correct? Okay. You don't need to look at him, but. Okay. All right, can you hear me? All right, my name is Melanie Patton. I live outside of Mount Pleasant near Trenton. Thank you so much for your time. Today we are here representing a large group. By the way, I am using Roger Patton and John Bain's time. Today we are here representing a large group of concerned Henry County citizens. We live here, work here, play here. We own businesses, we farm the fertile ground, we make up the fabric of Mount Pleasant, surrounding communities, and the productive farmland that our county is known for. We raise our children here, we watch our grandchildren grow as generation after generation of our families have called Henry County home. We attend church, we participate in volunteer work, we attend school events, and we support our quiet Midwest lifestyle. We are Henry County. Today we come before you to present information that we have gathered concerning the proposed wind energy project and the many areas of concern that must be considered, researched, and addressed in the Alternative Energy Ordinances for Henry County. We appreciate your service as this board, Planning and Zoning Commission, and we also know that this is the biggest issue with the most far-reaching ramifications to ever come before you or any past commission. It is important for you to consider the health, well-being, physical, emotional, and mental health of the people that make up our communities, as well as the long-lasting legacy that we choose to leave to the generations who come after us. Will we leave a legacy of agriculture, preservation, and perseverance, or will we make it acceptable to sell out our farms and our families to the highest bidder without regard for the details that will have to be tended to when a project becomes obsolete and those who made the money and the promises are long gone? I have compiled research to share with you, which you may or may not have received previously through the board over the past 2 months. I don't know about you, but paper copies helps me, and that's what I've provided you today, as well as a flash drive with additional documentation for you to consider. My presentation today is mostly about the health aspect. You will find out information on there, as well as the conservation and animal and wildlife information that Stephanie will present later. A large portion of the health information is shared with us from the Madison County Board of Health. Madison County was the hotbed of discussion concerning further wind energy development in 2019. While they did already have a couple of these industrial complexes, there were more proposed at the time. They willingly share this information with us in the hope that other counties will find it useful in forming their ordinances and standards. The WHO, World Health Organization, defines health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. There are many areas of health concern relating to wind turbines, sound and infrasound. The WHO states that noise is unpleasant and affects the quality of life. Shadow flicker, wind turbine syndrome, vibroacoustic disease, sleep disturbance, and well water disruption. In your packet, you'll find the WHO information as the first article. There's a summary of their findings, followed by the actual recommendations from the WHO concerning wind turbine noise, and the full document, which is well over 100 pages, is on the flash drive. The second article is Wind Turbines Make Waves. From the Bulletin of Science, Technology, and Society, it outlines information about sound, noise, pressure waves, infrasound, wind turbine syndrome, vibroacoustic disease, electromagnetic waves, dirty electricity, ground current, and electrohypersensitivity. This article was provided to me by a Henry County resident who is a nurse practitioner and lives in close proximity to a property that has an easement signed on it. Her family has stated that if there is a turbine built on the neighboring property, they will leave. Cardiologist Ben Johnson is the next article. From Madison County, he practices also in Des Moines and surrounding areas. He has a 184-page paper that provides an investigation and response to industrial wind turbines in rural areas. All 184 pages of his findings are on the flash drive. There are a few pages with the index as paper copies, as well as commentary on his study with an overview. Fourth, you will find wind turbines, vacated and abandoned home study discussing the adverse health effects as well as the effects on well water, pets, and other animals. This study is also part of Dr. Ben Johnson's work, along with a host of others with impressive credentials. It was just published earlier this year with peer reviews, and I've included a cover sheet from Dr. Johnson. Fifth, you will find visual health effects in wind turbines discussing shadow flicker, seizures, and sensory effects. Next, you will find in their Board of Health minutes from Brown County, Wisconsin from May 14, 2019. This county had a small turbine project with only 8 turbines, and because of adverse health effects from those living near these turbines and water contamination, the Brown County Health Board declared a health emergency. Their minutes from this meeting detail firsthand accounts of the experiences of the residents that led to this emergency health declaration. It is my hope that we can learn from this neighboring state and not have similar experiences. I've provided you with the minutes from that discussion as well as the minutes in their entirety on your flash drive. Next, you will find the Madison County Board of Health resolution from August 8, 2019. The minutes of this meeting are provided. There were presentations from both sides on the health issues. After hearing the information, the Board of Health in Madison County, Iowa passed the following resolution in August of 2019. The Board of Health determines that there are potential negative health effects with commercial wind turbines and that current setbacks are inadequate to protect public health. Therefore, the board would encourage those entities with jurisdiction within the county to take this into consideration when determining wind turbine setbacks. We recommend that the Board of Supervisors require a setback of 1.5 miles. Finally, you'll find a letter from a school superintendent in Armstrong, Illinois. His district has a wind turbine project, and he shares his concerns with the effects he is seeing on his students and their families. In closing, we are asking that you, as the Planning and Zoning Commission, review the information you've been presented today in both paper and electronic form. We know there's a large volume here to consider, and this is a multi-layered issue. We appreciate your input, your insight, your knowledge, and your careful attention that we know that you will invest in this discussion. We also ask that it be included in today's minutes that we have provided the members with this paper and electronic information to consider. In addition to giving input to the supervisors and the Planning and Zoning Commission, as a citizen group, we have researched information and ordinances from many counties in Iowa, along with our legal counsel. As you know, we have presented to each of you by mail a standalone ordinance to the board, to you and the Board of Supervisors for your use. We believe that all levels of government are by the people and for the people. Our time of complacency and inactivity is over. This issue, as well as so many others, warrant us being involved here in our county and getting informed, doing research and giving input. We know that just complaining or pointing out what we don't want is not effective. We must participate and give solutions, which is why we've spent countless hours researching and compiling this ordinance, which we provided to you to consider. We must leave no stone unturned, no issue unaddressed. We must think through all of the issues before they happen, because once a project is a reality, it is too late to turn back time with shoulda, woulda, and coulda. I implore you to investigate, formulate, and enact an ordinance that offers adequate protections for all residents and landowners, present and future. I ask that you institute appropriate and effective application, review, and approval processes so that each potential project now and for years to come is considered and evaluated individually for its appropriateness for Henry County. If we stand by and do nothing, say nothing, then we must go along with those who give input and make the rules. There is no time like now to hear what the majority of county residents want, and that is a common sense ordinance that protects our legacy of agriculture, rural freedom, and the quality of life that we have enjoyed for generations. Because priceless resources cannot be recreated once they are lost or destroyed. May we, all of us, be known as the generation that vowed to protect this legacy and pass it on intact and flourishing to future generations of Henry County citizens. Thank you.
Next on the list is Bill Crawford. For the speakers, when I give you 15 seconds, I'm just gonna raise my arm so you've got an idea where you're at. That's your last 15 seconds.
Okay. I'm Bill Crawford. My wife Carol and I live near Olds, but we have a Winfield address. We are non-participating landowners in this area. Sorry. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. As we all know, there's been a recent special election for EMS that supported EMS by a 2,273 to 200 vote. We hear, if you've heard KILJ in the last week, we hear the opposition saying there's a silent majority. The moratorium petition that we passed early in the year garnered over 2,000 signatures. We assume 127 are the main supporters for this. There is a similarity. I think if it went on further, those percentages would stay roughly the same. With that silent majority, this is the easement map, the latest that I have, showing the easements throughout the county, the northern portion. If that's a majority, this is a map we kept up until moratorium time and didn't proceed. Gray represents opposition. These are people that signed to say no, our land will not have turbines, voluntarily, with no pressure. They were glad to sign. With that, as I said, I'm a property owner. I have a lot of concerns about wind turbines in my proximity for my business purposes, my personal purposes. Those will be expounded upon later by other speakers. But in a nutshell, that's all I have. I thank you for the opportunity.
I'm sorry. If we can hold the applause, the rules do say that, that's an interruption, so we can just hold those. I appreciate it. Carolyn Crawford is next on our list.
I do want time to bill.
Oh, all right. Stephanie Congable Schrock.
Straw.
It rhymes with straw.
I'll do my best with my handwriting, but I can't.
Stephanie Conwell Straw, 1038 Quaker Avenue, Winfield, Iowa. Good evening. Thank you to the Planning and Zoning Commission for the opportunity to comment. Writing and reviewing ordinances, including zoning ordinances, is a lot of work. The pause provided by the moratorium has allowed me to check out the wind ordinances of other counties such as Des Moines, Washington, Madison, Butler, Palo Alto, and Polk. I also read the Cerro Gordo County Planning and Zoning Commission adopted report for the Cerro Gordo Board of Supervisors and reviewed Iowa Code Chapter 335 and Title 6, Chapter 2 of the Henry County Ordinance. After reading all that, I believe the best path forward for Henry County to regulate the siting and operation of a commercial wind energy system, conversion system, or CWEX, is to repeal Section 6.211.2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 of the current ordinance and establish a separate standalone ordinance for a CWEX, as well as a separate standalone ordinance for a commercial solar conversion system, or CSAS. Here's why. Section 6.211.2 provides a list of the information and documentation required to apply to rezone to an alternative energy overlay district. An overlay district or zone is a type of geographic zoning placed on top of an existing zoning district that may either implement additional restrictions or permit uses that may otherwise be disallowed. An overlay district does not replace the existing district, and the boundaries of the overlay must be defined. There is some information missing, though, from Section 6.211.2. The section does not address what happens after the application is received. For example, the review procedure, the requirement for notifications to be provided to parties affected by placement of an overlay, public hearings, and the approval procedures and who approves the application are not covered. Also, since an overlay does not replace the existing zone, the use of the word rezone could be confusing. Iowa Code Chapter 335, Section 335.2, entitled Farms Exempt, first paragraph states, except to the extent required to implement Section 335.27, no ordinance adopted under this chapter applies to land, farmhouses, farm barns, farm outbuildings, or other buildings or structures that are primarily adapted by reason of nature and area for use for agricultural purposes while so used. However, the ordinances may apply to any structure, building, dam, obstruction, deposit, or excavation on or in the floodplains of any river or stream. Section 335.2, third paragraph, second sentence, also clarifies land enrolled in a soil or water conservation program shall be considered land primarily adapted for use for agricultural purposes under this section. Section 335.1 states the provisions of this chapter shall be applicable to any county of the state at the option of the Board of Supervisors of any such county. This takes me to Section 6.221 of the Henry County Ordinance, also entitled Farms Exempt. The section is very similar to the Iowa Code. No requirement, restriction, or regulation contained in this ordinance shall be construed to apply to land, farmhouses, farm barns, farm outbuildings, or other buildings, structures, or erections which are adapted by reason of nature and area for use for agricultural purposes as a substantial means of livelihood while so used. However, this ordinance does apply to any structure, building, dam, obstruction, deposit, or excavation on or in the floodplains of any river or stream. Since an ordinance in Chapter 2 cannot apply to land used for agricultural purposes, while that land is being used for agricultural purposes as a substantial means of livelihood, I understand that to mean if an alternative energy overlay is approved, the overlay cannot include land being used for agricultural purposes. To recap, an overlay district is a separate type of zoning created and placed on top of an existing zoning district. An overlay district does not replace the existing zoning district. Section 6221 states that the regulations in Chapter 2 cannot apply to land used for agricultural purposes while the land is being used for agricultural purposes as a substantial means of livelihood, which leads to the ordinance does not allow an alternative energy overlay to be placed on top of land currently being used for agricultural purposes as a substantial means of livelihood. In order to provide the regulations for the siting and operations of a CWAX or CSES, I believe Henry County should repeal Section 6211.2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and establish separate standalone ordinances for each use. As mentioned earlier, several counties have passed standalone wind ordinances. It has been interesting to see how the counties formatted the ordinances, which areas were consistently addressed, and the protections each county believes are important for the health, safety, and welfare of residents and areas such as agricultural and conservation lands. We want to be part of the solution versus just pointing out the problems. Leveraging on the heavy lifting the other counties have done, we have developed and submitted a draft standalone ordinance for the siting and operation of a CWAX to the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. The ordinance addresses the procedures for submission, review, and approval of an application for a siting permit, the minimum siting and design standards for a CWAX, the decommissioning of a CWAX, and areas of concern such as damage to roads, drainage systems, and a non-participating landowner's property when a turbine fails due to an act of God or mechanical failure. We look forward to working together to develop an ordinance focusing on the protection of public health, safety, and community welfare of the residents of Henry County, while also avoiding adverse impacts to livestock and wildlife, as well as important areas such as agricultural lands, conservation lands, other sensitive lands, and the protection of property values. Do I have more time?
Yes, you do. I assume that that's due as the end of the time to you,
Yes.
Scott Congay, Rock and Sharp.
Yes. Thank you. Separate thing. I apologize, ordinances are definitely not exciting. There's been a lot of talk about how property tax revenue from a wind energy project will provide extra money to the schools in Henry County. A common statement when discussing the additional revenue has been, who doesn't want to help the schools? Thus implying that individuals who question whether the development of a commercial, green industrial, wind energy conversion system is in the best interest of the county and its residents are not concerned about the schools. The primary fact to remember is every school district in Iowa receives the same amount of funding per student. This is the general fund. For the 23-24 school year, that was $7,625 per student. There are 3 pots of money or categories that make up the amount a taxpayer pays in their property taxes. You may also hear this called a levy. The second fact to remember is state and federal laws specify how and on what a district can spend its funding. The first and largest category is called uniform levy. That amount is currently $5.40 per $1,000 of property value. Money from the uniform levy, the property taxes, and money from the state make up part of that amount per student. If the amount of revenue from property taxes increases, it does not mean the school district receives more money per student, aka the property taxes do not supplement the allowed funding per student. It means the money from the state makes up a smaller percentage of the funding per student. The revenue from the property taxes supplants the money the school district receives from the state. There's a big difference between the two. The second category is called the additional levy. An increase in the property tax revenue and the additional levy
That's
also.
fine.
I'm done?
Yes, that's
Okay.
fine. Thank you.
Well, I know that was riveting. But I also have, if I could, copies of my comments for each,
Stephanie White is the next
so
up
you
on
can
us.
see what I also did have a chance to present. Do you have one for that? You have a stack of them?
Bob and
Parts are
Dorothy
here.
are giving up their time for me.
Dorothy, and what was the other name there?
Whoever was on this.
I have Scott Jonathan is the next name under Dorothy.
I'm sorry, I'm Scott, yes. What'd you say? I didn't hear what you said.
We're just trying to figure out who gave up their time to me. It was Dorothy and Bob. Should be right there, my name.
Dorothy and Bob?
And Bob.
Okay, he's next on the list, all right, thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm Stephanie White, and I live on Highway 78, just outside of Winfield, Iowa. I currently live on 50 acres with my family on a plot of ground that has been in my husband's family for 150 years. My husband is the 7th generation, my son is the 8th generation, who is really looking to stay here in Henry County as of now. If you come to our house and visit, you might see the wildflowers that are kind of out of control in my front yard. You'll see bat houses in our trees. You'll see beehives around the backside of the chicken coop. You will see bluebird houses along Highway 78 as I have tried to develop a bluebird trail. You will also meet Samson, our livestock guardian dog, as we practice predator-friendly farming, which means that we would rather deter the wildlife instead of having to take other measures against them. When I first heard about the wind turbines, I really wasn't very concerned. In my mind, I believed that we were just trying to replicate what they were doing down in New London. I am a kind of a science nerd, and so I'm very curious by nature, and so I just decided to do my own research. So I started looking at the optimal setback, the height, the speed, the cut-in for wind turbines in relation to wildlife and livestock. As an animal behaviorist at the University of Iowa for 17 years, this has been part of my life. And I was, before that, I was an animal welfare officer. I worked at the DNR. I also worked with fisheries. So wildlife and animals have been my life. What I found was very concerning to me, and I ended up with more questions than I did answers. Birds and bats are like the most common wildlife species that are affected by wind turbines, and so I'm going to discuss them first. I just wanted to give a few stats about bats. There are 9 species approximately living here in Iowa. Some of them are endangered. They can easily fly up to a mile. That's 5,280 feet. They can reach speeds of 100 miles per hour. I had no idea. That was a new one for me. They have few natural predators other than wind turbines. They can live up to 30 years. Their essential role is in pollinating and dispersing seeds. And according to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, recent studies estimate that bats eat enough pests to save more than $1 billion per year in crop damage and pesticide costs in the United States corn industry alone. If you look at all of agricultural crops, that number jumps to $3 billion. So when I'm looking at these things and I'm seeing something that can be brought in that can be very detrimental to our bat population, and it concerns me because there
there are cascading effects to that. If we have more pests in our fields, what do the farmers have to do? They have to use more pesticide. And one of the other things that you see on my farm are honeybees. And we're always very concerned about pesticides in our honeybees. And so there's that cascading effect. But bats are very vulnerable to collisions with wind turbines, particularly during migration, which is during the spring and the fall. Dead bats are found beneath wind turbines all over the world. It is estimated that tens to hundreds of thousands die of wind turbines each year in North America alone. Unfortunately, it is not clear why this is happening. It's possible the wind turbines interfere with the seasonal migration and mating patterns in some of the species of bats. Moreover, 3/4 of bat fatalities at wind turbines are from species known as tree bats, which tend to migrate long distances and roost in trees. These bats migrate and mate primarily during the late summer and early autumn, which is also when the vast majority of bat fatalities happen at wind turbines. It is also possible that the bats mistake the slow or stopped turbine blades for trees. And so, as I was doing some research, some of the things that they said that could reduce the bat fatalities were the feathering in of the turbines, which would prevent the blades from spinning when electricity is not generated, curtailing or stopping turbines during periods of high risk, and this is typically from dusk all the way through night, from July to October. The height of the blade, the higher the better. The better outcome there is, and the standard, it seemed to be about 100 feet from the ground. And then the use of a real-time acoustic deterrent. However, in a direct email to me from Michael Whittabee from the Bat Conservation states, unfortunately, acoustic deterrents have shown inconsistent results at reducing bat fatalities. Results have varied greatly between sites, species, and years. A study in Ohio even found that fatalities of eastern red bats nearly doubled when acoustic deterrents were used. For now, deterrents should only be used in closely monitored experiments. So, looking at that to me was that there was, the major takeaway was that there was more research that was needed. They don't know why these bats are being attracted. They think maybe it's the color, maybe it's the heat coming off of the stem or the blades as they're going around. Maybe it's the fact that there's increase in insect around the turbine. They're really unsure. And the things that they have done to deter bats are not consistent. So I'd like to move on to the birds of prey in the area. So Iowa has 23 different raptors here. They can fly from 300 to 1,000 feet. They build nests on cliffs and in trees. They eat the small mammals, reptiles, fish, bugs, or they are scavengers. From an article that was put out by OSU and the United States Geological Survey, that they teamed up on how to study wind turbine effects on raptor populations. Out of the 14 raptor species evaluated for the study, and these studies are on the discs that are not on the flash drives that Melanie gave you. Of the 14 raptor species evaluated for the study, the raptors most at risk are the barn owl, the peregrine hawk, the golden eagle, the American kestrel, and the red-tailed hawk. And I think most of us know that at least 4 or 5 of those raptors are very common here in Iowa. When a raptor is killed from colliding with a wind turbine, that 20-year lifespan of reproduction is gone. As the wind energy industry continues to expand globally, the USGS analysis will reinforce the importance of taking steps to protect raptors from wind turbines, including placing the wind turbines in locations that are unlikely to significantly affect vulnerable species. And they also say that we need to keep moving forward with technology solutions to reduce fatalities as we build out more wind energy. Again, more research is needed. Other animals like insects, including bees, deer, and small mammals may also be impacted by the presence of wind turbines, either through direct harm or indirectly through habitat loss. Roe deer is one of the things that have been greatly studied in Europe. And research shows that the stress hormone cortisol is increased in roe deer that live next to wind turbines. They also find that more often than not, they tend to move away. And
You have 15 more seconds.
15 more seconds, okay. Sadly, there aren't enough studies on how wind turbines affect livestock. However, the research does exist that livestock, including cattle, horses, mink, are directly affected. These effects include reduced production, decreased weight gain, increased abortions, and deformed hooves. Additionally, again,
That's fine, thank you. Next is Scott Johnson. Good evening, my name is Scott Johnson. I live at 1255 James Avenue, Mount Pleasant. I'm just outside of Olds. I come as a concerned citizen. As many of you know, we just recently voted on an EMS for emergency response for our medical teams. My understanding is the most important thing of that is response time. And I want to speak a little bit from information I've spoken to John Martin, who has 30 years of experience in the air medical transport and over 4,000 hours. If he were here, he could tell you stories about saving people's lives by minutes. We're talking about minutes. I am a good neighbor and I like my neighbors and I don't want anyone to never get to the hospital because of some delay. According to John, right now they have a flight ability of 300 feet above ground during the day and 500 above at night to meet the FFA requirements. So currently that allows them to fly low enough they can descend rapidly and take off fairly rapidly, get to the ground, get off. Lower altitudes are also not affected by the wind so much. I guess when you get higher, wind gets changey, it makes it a little more difficult. So the disadvantage to having these wind towers in place is going to have to ascend and descend from higher altitudes, which add flight time. Most flights, I understand from the research, add 10 minutes or more. That's too long, folks, that's too long. Also, winds aloft are stronger in different directions, and that messes with flight time as well. Also, which is interesting to me, at a higher flight altitude, because this is what it would require with these monstrous towers, I think 600-700 feet they're talking about, they would have to go to a higher cloud ceiling, and they may not get FFA approval to take off, even. Now, can you imagine in an accident, and they have a lot of them at Olds right there at the convenience store, and air carriers landed there multiple times. And if you were like me, you watch air carrier go by, and I pause for a moment and say, Lord, please help those people. I don't want anyone to be hurt. I want them to get there as fast as possible. If it was your family, my family, I want them there right now. And we just voted on that bill for this sort of thing. With these heights, that's going to make them to where they may not be able to fly. Also, because we don't have these wind towers in most of the county, or any of the county to speak of, they have an unrestricted ability to land just about anywhere. And that's a big deal, because I understand landing in a certain spot, if we have a farmer that has an accident, and farmers have accidents unfortunately, they won't be able to land there. So I have some handouts for you, my time is up, but please consider a height restriction of these. I would say 200 feet, maybe for the max. Thank you. Next one is Cliff Baker. Do you want one of these, Joe?
Take it over
I can take one, sure.
Michelle and,
Evening, my name's Cliff. I live in New London, 203 South Pine, and I represent Air Advantage and the airport, Mount Pleasant Airport. Just to give an overlay real quick, with wind turbines coming here 500 feet above ground level litter the landscape. However, the stubborn reality is that the winds wind farms are being built in close proximity to the airports. And because of their height and their interference with radar sites used by air traffic control and interference with normal traffic flows in around airports like Burlington, Washington, Iowa, Mount Pleasant, Keokuk, Fort Madison, those flight patterns could be changed, especially for the scheduled airline, like the previous gentleman said, with EMS. And my personal part of my business is air electrification or crop dusting. The erection of turbine generators near public use airports invariably leads to five following things: interference with the radar, used to provide radar service to pilots operating aircraft in and out of airports with clutter, and the other signal disturbances having an adverse impact on the ability of air traffic control for provide services to pilots. The alterations to the traffic flow from VFR traffic, penetration of imaginary surfaces designed to ensure pilot operating aircraft separation from fixed objects, increasing climb gradients in aircraft departing from airports and prevent departing aircraft impacting the aircraft. An increase in minimum descent altitudes and other decision heights at which pilots may operate when conducting instrument approaches on, like you said, lower ceiling days, lower visibility days. The net result of these adverse effects is to make the airport a less safe and efficient destination, whether for flight training purposes, refueling, or pilots coming in here to conduct business in the county and or Mount Pleasant. With that being said, interest in self-preservation and desire to avoid being impaled by the blades of one of the wind turbine generators, which it has been happening in Oklahoma and several other states where these wind farms are greater. Other pilots and other companies that come here to do business in Henry County for tax purposes and for their company, i.e. The Fratco, Stephens Auctioneers, all those people flying to the Mount Pleasant Airport on a monthly basis, almost on a weekly basis, to conduct business. With that being said, the airport, most of the time it says here at the end, the explosion of wind turbine developments across the U.S. is not bode well for continued viability of many public use airports. I'll admit to a point of saying what the trickle effect is. Most towns / cities that have airports, the economy is reduced by airport being closed, because with the wind turbine generators being close to the proximity of the airport, most pilots and most people decide not to fly into the airport there. Now, from an agricultural standpoint, which I've been spraying for now 11 years, and my father did it for 32 years, and my grandfather did it for 50, all over the South, for that matter. When we applicate, they're supposed to turn them off. I've phoned around ones up in Grinnell, Iowa, and Carroll, Iowa. Never the case. You're supposed to contact the farmer and or the landowner. They're supposed to contact the wind generator, the people who control them. That's never a thing. But the adverse effects is when we have to go crop dust, we already have so many distractions. We have power lines, we have animals like bats. Unfortunately, we get bats and or birds. But the adverse effects for the economy, for the airport, and for the agricultural standpoint in Henry County, Lee County, Des Moines County, Louisa, Jefferson, all the ones around there, because we spray out in Mount Pleasant Airport. It will cost more to apply pesticides to the crops, because not only it's been shown that counties that have crop dusting businesses, the insurance rates go up because they heard that their wind turbines have been in that county where the spraying service is. My friend up in Grinnell is one of them. He's Larry runs Larry Fine Service. He's right along I-80, Grinnell, Iowa, I-80, and then Monticello area. His insurance rates went up 15%. And that causes the trickle effect again. We have to pass that fee along to the farmers or the landowners, the growers. But get back to the airport situation. The airport closures have been in Nebraska, Oklahoma, Arizona. There's been studies that when wind turbines go up more than 40 in the county or around the airport within 10 miles, the airport tends to either very hurt, close, and or affects the economy of the city that's close to and or the county. And some say, you can use drones so we don't use the crop dusting for the agriculture part. The ag drones, the accidents are 16 to 1. 16 drones go down to 1 aircraft. And there's been 40 aircraft accidents, 10 fatalities, I believe, in the agricultural aviation industry. And some of those are caused by the drones hitting the aircraft. But I have several studies from the NAAA, which is the National Agricultural Aviation Association, with all that spray in the U.S. that have showed that wind turbines have not been shut off during agricultural operations, which makes a hazard for me because I want to go home and see my family at night, every night. And not only am I going across the ground at 160 miles an hour at 15 feet above the ground, I can pull up and turn around at 200 feet. My ferry is from the airport is 500 feet AGL, which is 500 above ground level, to the field I'm spraying. That's illegal what the FAA requires. But when I'm in the active 137 aerial application, that requires me to be closer to personal property than closer than 500 feet. With that being said, the agricultural part of Henry County, I've lived here going on 15 years now. I've got to know a bunch of the farmers. I've sprayed for a bunch of the farmers. I think they think I do a good job, but we never had any complaints. But I want to spread the fact that it provides more of a hazard for us and for us being able to treat things properly and safely. Because we already have distractions. We watch out for detassers. We watch out for farmers that are out there watching us do it. That don't watch us. But the trickle effect is that for the airport side of things and for the county, the airport will suffer because of the traffic flow and the people coming into the county and Mount Pleasant for that matter. The agriculture will suffer because we have to provide services to protect the crops, but the services will have to go up, and sometimes I have to say no, we can't treat your field because it's too dangerous. And then thirdly, since I live in New London, the wind turbine in New London is considered obsolete, from what I understand. I've lived in New London now for 7 years, or I gotta look at the boss, 8 years. And we've never, it's more expensive to keep up than it is to go to new and or just tear it down at this point. What else did I want to touch on? Another thing on the ag part was, when they do these wind turbines, they have to do the studies beforehand, and they put up what's called a MET tower, meteorological, I can't remember what the other parts of the acronym is, but they can put those up overnight. Hence being over by Danville, over in Des Moines County, there's one popped up right in the curve next to the high power lines, I call them John Henry lines. Popped up overnight. I sprayed a field this year that I did not know was going up, and it scared me. It really scared me because I did not expect it to come up. But anyway, closing statement, I guess, is safety for everyone in the economy. So I'd like to pass up this map too for the ones proposed in the morning.
Next is Brian Messer.
Joe, I think the next in line is Roland Messer. He's going to see his time to me.
Okay.
Good. Okay, so first I want to say thank you to the board for all your diligent work back in 2022 when you came up with the current ordinance for the wind and solar overlay. I think you did a very good job at that point in time for fairness and equity to all people involved. And I applaud you for that work at that time, in which case all 3 of the board of supervisors that are currently on the board passed and approved. So I appreciate that. Now I want you to have the courage to look at your convictions and make sure that you stay to that which you've already passed. What I would like to talk about, I am a retired doctor of physical therapy, and so I'm going to be talking at some point about some of the health concerns that were raised and how to look at research articles that have been presented throughout the county you have to know how to eliminate a bias from an article. And so there's a significant amount of bias in medical research. So what I have done is I found an enormous amount, which I didn't realize you could accept packets. So we'll make sure that I'll get you a packet of these research articles that are double-blinded and randomized. So it takes bias and everything out of the equation that shows that significantly these health concerns that are being raised are not a health concern. Okay, at the current ordinance that you have. That is something that we need to know, okay? We look at the setbacks, maybe 2 times the height of the tower. So if the tower is 600 feet, we're looking at 1,200 feet setback. That's probably more for safety from them falling or something along those lines if struck by something that would do that. But as far as anything else, we need to look at the decibel levels. And research shows that 50 decibels is the sound of a refrigerator. So the sound of a refrigerator does not cause harm to you, and that is something that is supported in the literature. Okay, and then there's a lot of other things that have been brought up that sound technical, like infrasound, microteslas, amplified modification, everything else that's going on. I will present you with this that shows that is not a health concern. Okay, now I want to talk from a 5th generation landowner. I've heard many people talk about the character of the county, and I agree that a lot of us have been raised here, lived here, and enjoy life here. Okay, we need to preserve the county. Counties die when they don't have a population and a tax base, and you've seen that going around throughout the county. One of the problems is EMS. We voted to increase our taxes to supply a need that we need. We need that. Okay, so what we need to do to keep Henry County viable is to keep our tax base. And this is a great opportunity to do so. I'm happy to see that, I would ask this, why are we here? I think a lot of it has to do with politics, and I know that a lot of people don't want to admit that. Okay, so with that, where do we go from here? Where do we draw the line? When we talk about safety, it's great. I've been sprayed on twice by aerial sprayers. No big deal. I've been sprayed on by other people as well. Where do we look at our roads? We're not designed for the current agricultural, but that's where we're at. That's what we need to do to farm now. Okay, so there's a lot of things that we have that has changed the character of the county. Walmart distribution sits on land that I played on as a child. Okay, it is not there. I can see the lights from my family farm. Okay, that's a change in the character of the county. And I would like to say that that's just the facts of things. I can stand out on 218, which is now 4-lane instead of 2-lane. Increased traffic, but better for economics. Okay? I can stand on the corner of 218 and 200th Street, and I can look out at night and I can see 16 flashing red lights in the sky right now. So are we worried about flashing red lights in the sky because of this? We already have the tall obstacles within the county. We have lights in the county. We have 4 lanes going on 218 and 34 for economic development and improvement of our county. Okay, so I would like you to keep that in mind as you contemplate everything that's being presented in front of you. Okay. Now, with regards to animals, I wanted to just present one thing to you real quick. Here's just a piece of paper talking about various things by the Fish and Wildlife. Yes, wind turbines do affect birds, okay? But so does significantly other things. Cats kill approximately 1.5 billion birds a year. Okay, are we gonna outlaw cats? I mean, I don't think so. Pesticides kill over millions of birds a year. Are we gonna outlaw pesticides? Are we gonna outlaw insecticides that kill the insects that bats eat? What are we gonna do? I mean, I know that you don't have the power to do that, but I think it's interesting, right? I know other people are gonna talk about various things with land rights and so on, but I wanna bring us back to Ernie Hayes, who had the foresight back in the day to really work hard to get the Avenue of the Saints through here in 218. Okay, that brought Walmart distribution here. That brought $500,000 a year in tax base that I think we're pretty happy to have. As of right now, with the current, what the board has done, they've already cut $60,000 from Board of Health, and the Conservation Board. I might be talking later on. Thank you for your time thus far. And I will be presenting a packet of these articles to Joe to get to you later. Thank you.
Next up, Jeff Olson.
Good evening. Hi, Jeff Olson, 2272 140th Street, Winfield. My wife Gail and Aunt Sunny and I farm south of Winfield around Swedesburg. I guess I'm speaking for the wind farm proposed. We and some of our landlords are cooperators with RWE to build wind turbines in North Henry County. When the opportunity first came along, we did our research. We hired a law firm to review the documents. We researched RWE and the other company that was recruiting land in the county. RWE is not a company that builds turbines and flips them. They're in it for the long haul as an energy producer. We visited another of their locations, went inside a turbine, listened to it from several different distances, saw the control room, and talked to the employees. One employee said he drove an hour to work through 2 of the wind farms owned by other companies to work for RWE. He said the way they take care of both their employees and the landowners was an important consideration to him because employees are usually the ones that are caught in the middle. But RWE treats their people with respect. We spoke with people who live in other parts of the state where wind farms have been operating. They spoke very highly of the investment the wind company had made in infrastructure, especially road improvements, and the positive role the company took in supporting local community organizations and activities. Driving through the countryside, there are many obstacles that block our beautiful sunsets, some of which are much noisier than wind turbines. We have the cell towers, the grain elevator legs, the high line wires. Even with confinement buildings, the landowner had rights to build on their land what would benefit them and their businesses. Even farmers who came very early to this land recognized the benefits of wind energy and built windmills to allow the progress of their businesses. And suddenly, now people have decided it's time to draw the line on the landowner's rights. The contracts clearly outline what happens in case of damage or at the end of the life of wind turbines. We seem to be living in an area when stirring up fear is the only way to cause trouble to prevent something from moving forward, unfortunately. We believe that wind power is an important resource for our future. We think that RWE is a reputable company and has a contract that we expect to hold them to. We believe that this project will be overall positive for our community. Thank you.
Next up is Diane Ensminger.
I cede my time to Nick Brown.
Nick Brown? Okay. Next is Butch. Well, can't quite make out the last name. And are you ceding time also?
Bernie.
Julie Drennan.
Julie, okay. Brad Watson? Is there?
Good evening. My name is Brad Watsy. I live at 3310 West Jackson Avenue in Fairfield. And I'm here tonight because I was a land agent in the industry for 6 years. I started in 2008 on one project up in North Dakota. That company wanted to bring the land agents in-house, and that didn't work for me. So we started a company called Land Agent Services LLC. We worked for all the large companies, Acciona, Iberdrola, Horizon, Anexco, Gestamp, Geronimo, a lot of them. Never heard of RWE, so I can't speak to them, and nothing about what I'm going to say tonight speaks to RWE. So the reason I got out of the industry, I was sitting there with a developer one night. Oh, let me back up. After a year or two, I started my own company because I had 2 partners, and we're about 1/3 the size. We had 60 land agents, 25 document prep people, a couple of teams of deed pullers and title people. So we've done a lot of land work in the United States. I thought it was a great industry. We're doing good. This is good for the landowners, good for the community. Well, I found out I was lying to people. How so? Well, I was sitting there with the developer one night and another land agent. We were having a meeting about the project, and there was another company competing for the same ground. So I said, what do you think? Neither side has enough territory to build a wind farm. He said, well, we're gonna probably just dig some holes and it makes it look like we have forward progress and we'll get $4,000 or $5,000 per hole. Right then and then, I knew my time in the business was done. And as President Trump always said, I had a nice life. It was a good company, and I gave it all up. I let all the other projects, all the other companies expire, and I got out of the wind business, simply for that. There's some things that I saw in the wind business, and it's not all bad. You know, landowners are gonna get their payments. May not be what was promised if you're talking about being paid on production. You guys are certainly gonna have compaction with your ground. That is never gonna change. It's gonna be damaged forever. You know, when you're talking about these larger turbines, and back in the day, well, the ones proposed were much larger than the ones that I worked on. Do I have another couple?
15 seconds, John.
Yeah, okay.
I relinquish my time for him.
Excuse me,
She's giving up her time for him. You get my 3 minutes, please.
what's your last name, who are you?
Check, Katie, check.
So, as a land agent, most of the time we'll lease the land and we're gone. We don't know if that project's ever been built. But there's been a number of projects where I actually was the person that just helped decide where transmission lines were gonna go, get transmission line easements, get substation easements. I would execute the build plans with the landowners. And that was it was a problem, because, you know, when the land agent is talking to somebody, they're telling them, yeah, you know, the company, they're gonna fix everything, and, you know, it's all gonna be good. It's not. They do their best to reclaim the ground and fix things, but the ground is impacted forever. And with these larger turbines, you're talking maybe 10, 15 acres of compaction in that area. It's never gonna be the same. I've taken these calls from landowners for years after I even got out of the industry, because, you know, they got my number in their phone. And I've taken calls about insurance adjusters. So you got crop loss because there's compaction. So every year the adjuster has to come out. Everybody here's probably dealt with an adjuster. You may get a good one, you may get a crappy one. So there's that. The crane paths, rain, snow, or shine, they're gonna go from the closest point, from point A to point B. And some of the companies I work with said, yeah, they tear them down, they go around, and never. They always go straight across, so you're gonna have that. Then you're gonna have compaction from collection lines. You're absolutely 100% gonna have tile damage. And getting the tile fixed, you know, you can't even get into a doctor sometimes for a couple of months. Imagine all this ground with tile damage. Your tile maintenance might not get fixed for a year or two. So you're gonna have that. Is the headache worth the money? That's what I would propose to everybody here. On the flip side, RWE is offering more money than I've ever heard of in this industry. It's a lot, and they've been working on this project for a long time. They've got millions invested in this, and I know that for a fact. The wind here isn't very good. It just isn't. So why do they want this land so bad? Am I still good?
I need my time as a gentleman. My name is Kevin Wagner.
Kevin Wagner.
Big part of why I'm here is because I love this country. And I am tired of seeing multinational companies, elitists, come in and take control of our ground. What that agreement that you're all looking at today, it's telling you what you can, what they're allowing you to do with your ground and how you will do it. Yeah, you can farm until you can't. That hasn't happened as far as I know still in the industry, but they have that control. And what I see in this country right now, you got the Chinese buying endless acres, as much as they can get a hold of. Bill Gates has bought almost 300,000 acres. The Mormon Church owns gazillions of acres. And the wind industry, golly, they have leased more land and have control of more land in this country than any entity. I'm sure of it. Because as my company, we leased probably a couple million acres. I never had a lot. I tried to do it once, and I could never keep track of it. So I would implore this board to forget the ordinances and just say no to selling our precious farm ground out. It's not worth the money. These people have worked and had this land in their family for generations, blood, sweat, and tears. Why would you give it over to a multinational company that would not exist if it wasn't for our tax dollars? If it wasn't for the subsidies that we give, that our tax dollars give them, if it wasn't for the production tax credit, once the turbines are running, they get a production tax credit. And I don't know what it is today, but back when I was in the business, they would match it per kilowatt hour. So our tax dollars are going to the very few people at the top to give you a little bit back, but they have control of your ground. And they do have control of your ground, make no mistake. If push comes to shove, they've got the resources because they're an elitist company. They all are. Anybody that gets money from our government, they're elitists. And there's half of America right now is fighting that. The other half, they want it. So that's up for all of you all to decide. But again, I would implore this board and the county of Henry County to say no to selling out a precious ground. Thank you.
Right, and I give my time for Stephanie White.
Okay. Joshua Sparrow.
I give my time to Wade Fisher.
Wade Fisher.
Wade Fisher.
Marilyn Young.
I give my time to Joe Mitchell.
Sarah Mertens.
I give my time to Brian Hesser.
Dean.
Are we okay?
Well,
You tell me, Joe.
yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna go by the
You're
rules.
up there, so let's just keep it moving.
Okay.
We'll move back down to this.
Okay, so I just want to read something from the Ohio Department of Health that put out a full statement. And I want to put that essentially anything, it says there is no significant body of peer-reviewed scientific evidence that clearly demonstrates a direct link between adverse physical health effects and exposure to noise, audible, LFN, infrasound, visual phenomena known as shadow flicker or EMF with wind turbine projects. what any research does show is just a certain level of annoyance, and that it shows that if you come in with a preconceived notion about it, you might be annoyed by it, and therefore that could potentially create some stress. Okay, now, we look at another thing I read, like Ms. White, I read a lot of articles now, I find that interesting to do. But I found an article that talked about, it looked at farmers across the Midwest, and specifically in southeast Iowa. It was around the Keokuk area, but it was also Ohio and I believe Missouri. And it looked at what stresses out farmers. And I thought it was interesting that the number one stressor by far was finances. That was 45%. To a distant second was weather. Weather was a distant second at 22%, and then other stressors. So why would somebody potentially look to sign up for this in economic instability for farmers, right? It's to provide economic stability for farmers to potentially pay for who knows what bills. Okay, maybe they've got a whole bunch of medical bills they're trying to pay to keep their farm. There's all sorts of reasons that I'm not going to list today. Here's a great article that talks about the ugly truth that farm has seen the largest declines in net farm income ever in 2023 and 24. Okay, the lowest ever. We're going to see approximately a $15 billion decrease in profits for Iowa farmers this year compared to 2021 because of grain prices. Okay, so I think that's important of why someone would try to provide economic stability for their family and their farm and their life. Okay? I think that's the main thing that I wanted to discuss about with the last minutes I had. Thank you.
My name is Dean King, and I live at 103 North Adams in Mount Pleasant. And my farm is located at the address on 185th Street, which, by the way, is the last street that they'll be able to put a wind turbine because it's 5 miles away from the airport. So I am 4th generation on my farm. My great-grandfather bought it. We've been a Century Farm for a long time. My daughter lives on the farm, and my grandchildren also live on the farm, 6 generations on the same farm. And a few years ago, just northwest of our house, somebody built a hog confinement. As everybody knows, most of the wind comes from the northwest. So almost every day she gets to smell that hog confinement. Nobody asked us if we wanted it, but it's there. And my daughter's taking a really healthy attitude about that because she said it smells like money. Then, just south of us, are farmers who have a grain dryer, which is going right now. And it's about half a mile away, and it's extremely loud. Nobody asked us if we wanted that there. My main concern is this. The Republican platform for this state and county says we support the right of an individual to do with his land what he wants to do. That's all I have to say.
East Webster Street. Can't make out the last name.
Give him a time, it's Joe Mitchell.
Nick Brown. You have one person seating time, is that it? Yes.
My name is Nick Brown, and I am a renewable energy developer, if anybody guessed. And I appreciate the commission taking the time, and I appreciate the hard work. And then I want to say that I also appreciate the thoughts and comments of the community. I think it's important to be passionate, and I think it is good to hear everybody's opinions. And I want to say that if anybody has any questions or if anybody wants to continue the discussion, I would be happy to meet you outside, follow up on a later date, or anything to assuage any concerns. And so, as I mentioned, I represent RWE, and I'm a renewable energy developer. I wasn't always a renewable energy developer. I'm actually an electrical engineer by trade. And so, I worked across the energy landscape. I worked from coal plants to wind farms to gas plants to basically everything when it comes to power. I worked underneath the coal pile of North America's largest coal plant, worked out in the field of wind farms, and I've worked under the bench board at gas plants. And throughout the time, I've come to realize there's a few different things. And so I think there's a way to do things right, and there's a way to do things wrong. And I think that there's a lot of pros and cons against each energy source and anything you bring to a community. And I also think above all of those, there's a lot of misconceptions. And so one of the best examples of pros and cons of energy is the picture that I handed you, and that is the title called Help with the Law. And so what that is a photo of 1906 Pittsburgh that features black smoke pouring out of coal plants. And so this was a time when you had to use a lamp to go outside. You had, if you looked out your window at noon, you would think that it's nighttime. This was also a time that was when we were electrifying America. And so we sit here at night with the lights on, with the fans running, because of those coal plants. Those coal plants are 100 years old, and it's time for those next innovations. But those also show that you can innovate, you can bring new technologies, but you have to do it the right way. And I think that's the same with wind energy. I think there's a right way to build a wind facility, and I think there's a wrong way to build a wind facility. And I think that when it comes to ordinances, it is very important not to throw away the baby with the bathwater, and it's important to make sure that you take everybody's opinions into account so that it doesn't negatively affect health and wellness, but it also allows you to enjoy the benefits of those new technologies. And so one of the things to do right is to take safety into account. And I think I want to say that safety is one of the highest priorities to both RWE and the wind industry. The wind industry has put years of effort and millions of dollars into the research and development of turbines and projects to make sure that they are safe. Turbines installed by reputable developers, and I want to say that. I want to say reputable developers, because there's a lot of people out there who do a lot of things, but when you have a reputation at stake, you're willing to do things right. And so reputable developers have thousands of hours of operation. They're made by top-tier manufacturers. They have tens of thousands of turbines installed, and they learn each time. Modern turbines have thousands more points and hundreds of more safety features. And for example, modern turbines are designed with a protection system that if a turbine is struck by lightning, it travels safely down the ground wire and is heard by the ground. And so this is under the International Electrotechnical Commission standard that makes it so that the likelihood of getting injured by a turbine getting struck by lightning is 1 in 100,000. The likelihood that you'll get struck by lightning just walking around any part of the year is 1 in 15,000. Like I said, I'm an electrical engineer. I responded to these. I worked on hundreds of different turbines. I've worked on about a dozen different sites, and I've actually seen these newer turbines struck by lightning, and most of them are superficial damage. And so that's just one of the ways that when you look at safety, or when the wind industry looks at safety, we take that into account. And so, and I think even past safety, I think one of the most important things to do, and one of the most important ways of building something right, is to be a good neighbor. And so sites designed years ago, and so if you look at sites in 2008 or 2012, they were designed differently. These are smaller turbines with more mechanical parts that spun faster and are closer to homes. This was done in the past, but that's not how modern sites are designed. This antiquated practice, though, does affect the misconceptions of how you build sites these days. turbines in the early 2000s had smaller windswept areas, and they had higher revolutions, and sometimes that caused that extra nuisance. And now, wind turbines move much slower and are quieter than 10 or 15 years ago. And I think that one of the misconceptions is that turbine or wind companies want to build something within 1,000 feet, and I don't think that is true. And so I think that when you consider a modern wind site, from a sound requirement, from a setback requirement, what you are actually looking at is more like a third of a mile. And then in addition to that, the third of a mile setback, I believe the landowner should be able to do what they want with their land. And so there should be different requirements for the people who want the turbines and people who don't. Thank you. Everything?
Julie Brennan?
Good evening, I'm Julie Brennan, a developer with RWE Clean Energy. Planning Commission members, thank you so much for your time this evening. Thanks for your work on this ordinance and just hearing all of our comments tonight. So I first want to establish, since the company I work for, RWE, has been discussed, I do want to establish our track record too. So we have over 32 wind farms in the US, and we operate over 3,200 wind turbines. So we've never sold a wind farm, we have acquired some wind farms, and we pride ourselves on our relationships with landowners and with communities, the communities we work in. And our reputation matters to us, the safety component matters, the annoyance level matters. We want good ordinances just like everyone here, because we're only as good as our most recently built wind farm. So we care about that a lot. In my public comment tonight, I do specifically want to discuss setbacks, as well as sound and health studies, which have been touched on. But just first to be clear, in the US, there's over 74,000 wind turbines in the contiguous states. Over 6,000 of those are in Iowa alone. And these range from those built from early 2000s to as recently as last year. They range from 350 feet tall to 600 feet tall. And importantly too, in the US, over 4,300 of these turbines are at the 600 foot or higher height level. So we are not discussing a new technology that's been around for a long time. I think that's been discussed tonight. The newer heights have been around for a long time as well. And you know, with the sheer number of turbines, we're talking about hundreds of wind farms. So the health studies and the impact of the wind farms has been looked at, it has been studied. In fact, I do just want to touch on too, our wind farm, the wind farm tour that we hosted, so we've hosted a few now of our wind farm in Illinois. Those turbines are about 500 feet tall. That's in a county of 100,000 people total in that county. And we hear of no countywide health impacts or sound complaints at that wind farm. So first, let's talk about setbacks. So again, with the 74,000 wind turbines in the US, the vast majority of those occur in areas with setbacks typically around 1,200 to 1,500 feet. Some are closer. In Iowa, Nebraska, I've got the early wind farms, some are around 1,000 feet in setbacks. But that's the vast majority of the setbacks we see. As turbine models have gotten larger, yes, we have seen an increase of setbacks to 1,600 feet to about a third of a mile. So this is an industry standard that we see that is known to be safe and has known to support communities. So with regard to sound, including infrasound and low frequency noise, studies were already mentioned tonight. I do want to highlight some that were already mentioned, but so the Iowa Policy Project and the Iowa Environmental Council both stated in 2019, there is no authoritative evidence that sound from wind turbines represents a risk to human health among neighboring residents. This hypothesis is supported by peer-reviewed literature pertaining to environmental stressors and health. So that was published by them. Second, as mentioned, the Ohio Department of Health does conclude a very similar thing with regard to audible noise, low frequency noise, and infrasound. And then a study that was alluded to replicated the infrasound from turbines. This was a peer-reviewed published study, And it replicated that over a 72-hour period and found no physical effects and no sleep disturbance among the participants in the study. So what does that mean as far as our recommendations and our thinking about this? When it comes to setbacks, you know, a third of a mile does seem appropriate for a standard setback here. When it comes to sound, the World Health Organization was mentioned. They did revise their number. I think this was 2019, might have been 2020. They recommend a 45 decibel day, evening, night measure, which results in about a 43, 44 max. So that's what the WHO recommends. This is not a constant sound level. I want to be clear about that. Wind turbines, as is pointed out, are intermittent. They depend on wind speed, wind direction, and you know, other factors. So that sound level, you're merely designing the limit with that sound level. You aren't saying all the time it's going to be running at that sound level. So that's important, and that will change. I mean, there's plenty of times when they're going to be inaudible due to, you know, wind direction, other ambient noise, or moisture in the air. There are, you know, I acknowledge there's a lot of scary studies on the internet. I've seen them myself, I've read them, I understand. I want us to ground, as, you know, Nick said and as others have said, ground our recommendations in peer-reviewed, you know, heavily published and heavily researched literature on the matter on setbacks and sound. With that, thank you very much.
Steve Dietrich.
I deal with my time.
Who were you?
I already did.
Oh, you did to,
Cliff Baker.
okay, thank you. Mark Davis.
I yield my time to the RWE reps.
Do you, either one of you have any more to?
For now, we're good.
You good? Okay. Lynn Humphreys.
I also have Paul Humphreys and Meredith Williams talking.
Thank you.
My name is Lynn Humphreys. My husband and I reside at 1224 Lexington Avenue, Winfield. Just for reference, it's about 2 miles east of the gas station in Olds, and right directly in the flight pattern that Scott mentioned. So we see those helicopters frequently and say a lot of prayers as they go frequently on us. So again, that's where we live. I represent a non-participating property. We're about 4 acres. And for reference, that would be about 1.5 times this block that this courthouse sits on. We don't have farm ground there. We do have farm ground in Wise County. However, none where we live. We chose to live there to be close to family, and we've been there for 30 years, and we've been a very productive part of the community and this county, volunteering, providing services, because we also own a business, a sound business. Paul was ready to jump in and help out there, Joe. So, again, we are not participating, but we are, if you look at the map, the little white dots surrounded by lots of colors. So there are contracts all around us. So we stand to be buried by these wind turbines, should it go into effect. So, like many property owners, we're concerned, and as the over 2,000 people that signed the petition were making their voice known, they're very concerned as well. We're concerned with the adverse impacts that the commercial wind turbines may have on our home and our life, and in our case, our business. And in many cases, their businesses, because those that do farm, that have livestock, that have animals, as Stephanie talked about, there are studies that demonstrate that there are effects on animals. So erection of those wind turbines hold high stakes for us, as we do own and operate a a small sound business on that property. Of great concern are setback requirements that leave room for impact from shadow flicker, noise pollution, cellular phone and internet interruptions. We all know how that's become an integral part of what we do. I've had a heck of a lot of doctor's appointments now, and rarely am I making appointments without going through my phone, my internet, doing something that way. And that stands to cause business delays, decrease on our property value, and our quality of life. So those are all great concerns. Additional concerns include the sight of these massive turbines with their flashing red lights cluttering our landscape. We enjoy where we live. That's why we chose where we live. That's why we drove and have commuted 80 miles one way to live where we live. So we are invested in this property. And we have taken a 100-year-old home and we've renovated it and we've done work on it. So we have invested greatly. So when you talk property values, you're talking our blood, sweat, and tears that have gone into it. There's also risk to what I call our infrastructure. We all know that we're part of the Winfield community mostly. We support our church, food pantries, school. Stephanie spoke about the impact, the dollar amounts for schools. I can stand here and tell you, we have very much invested in our schools. We have made donations. We have provided in-kind services greater than the amounts that would be brought in per student. So to get a little bit more specific on some of the concerns, again, on the setbacks, protection needs to be in place from the property line of any non-participating landowner's property. Again, we're a small 4 acres surrounded by all this land that stands to be leased for these wind turbines. Dwellings are not the only buildings that can be impacted, as people do conduct business as we do in our pole building, and others raise animals in other buildings that stand to be impacted. So that just names a few of the things. Additionally, any new dwellings, I would ask you to consider the fact that people may want to build new dwellings and how that might enter into the ordinance. So shadow flicker and noise, again, studies show, and very importantly show, that people who have lived through wind turbine builds state their lifestyle, sleep patterns, and health have been impacted. Just because a study hasn't been done doesn't mean that there's no impact to be found. Not one person's well-being should be sacrificed, nor should they be caused to suffer relocating so a corporation can make money. Again, these are people, not unlike us, that have invested in their communities, that are volunteering hours, whether it's church, school, old thrashers, whatever it is, they're contributing and have been contributing all their lives, many of them for generations, as you've heard.
Thank you for joining us.
Cellular phone interruption and internet interruption, again, that consideration.
Can you shut that off, have a little bit of decency? What are you doing?
Again, interruptions from cellular phones and internet. Again, we went through this with the pandemic, how important it was for schools, for education. We have two college students that come home and are doing homework. Any of those interruptions can cause disruption in our business and in just everyday work that we do. Property values. During the standing room only supervisors meeting in January that many of us were present for, a gentleman spoke up saying he had planned to buy land in the country but is no longer considering that due to the wind turbines. RWE has said repeatedly in meetings, in our town hall meetings, that they don't know, they haven't seen that property value impacted. But simple economics, we all understand, if there aren't buyers there's not demand. Demand means the property value goes down. It doesn't take a whole lot of thinking to know that it's gonna be impacted in one way or another. Again, further research shows property values have actually been affected from 10 to 50%. A negative property value impact of any amount is unacceptable. Again, that's our blood, sweat, and tears that went into it, rather than a company that has just shown up and wants to take the tax dollars. So why would we continue to invest in those properties? I've heard that comment from many people. Why do we continue to do that if we're at risk of that going down? Quality of life, we chose to live in the country. Again, we drove those miles, we've invested, we've been a productive part of that community and our county. And I can't predict all the ways, none of us can, that this could be affected or involve our ecosystems. We have eagles flying around. I was surprised to learn when I met with the land agent, and I mentioned this, that there were eagles around us that they seem to not know. They've been in our community for a couple of years. You didn't know that there were eagles in the vicinity, that they're over at the hog confinements in Wayland, just a few miles from us. I draw your own conclusion on that. I've drawn mine. Again, if the degradation of the land has been discussed, that's of concern. And as I think of all the things our community has to offer and the infrastructure that has been built, again,
That's time.
That's 9?
Time.
9 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Jeff Roth.
I'm Annette Montersh, and I'm giving my minutes to Jeff Roth.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Henry Johnson, also give my minutes to Jeff.
Not sure if that's why, guys.
Who was the second one?
Darren Johnson.
Darren Johnson.
So I had all these things to present. Potential medical issues. Can I be the only one to say, I don't want to see them? We were told that we can't just say that, right? Because it's hard for our county to make decisions based on, I don't want to see them. I live on a farm that's been in my family since the 1870s. I personally don't own a lot of land. My mom, grand, death. They own the other part right now. We do bees. We do chestnuts. Someday when my nuts drop, we will have an income on this farm. Okay. In this room, we are full of people that I care about, that I grew up with, that I'm on the other side of.
Mr. Roth.
Yeah.
We're addressing the
Yeah.
commission, not the audience.
All right. This issue has come between us as a county. And I want to say something I've learned. Number one, I appreciate the planning and zoning committee, because I wouldn't want your job. I appreciate the supervisors, because I don't want your job. Joe, I don't want your job either. I promise. I know how hard this is. We have a duty, just like our ancestors, to continue to protect our land and to produce on our land. Okay? My fear is there's too many unknowns here. Too many things that we don't know until it's done. I'm speaking from experience from the part of a generator that I own in southwest Minnesota with my wife's family. My brother-in-laws say they would never do it again just because of the soil compaction. Okay? They live amongst these things. Okay? It's very rural. It's much more rural than this. Easter Sunday, we had the shadow flicker. Okay? Not the end of the world. But the first time I saw it, I didn't know what it was.
Many of us are choosing to live in the country. I don't want to tell my neighbors what they shouldn't do, but I also don't want them to trespass upon my quality of life. I am a non-participating landowner along with my extended family. We were approached. Respectfully, we denied. Said no. This is about money. There is no one I've talked to, including my close friends, who signed up for anything, any reason but money. And I get it. But when we're dead and gone, what does it mean for the next generations? I had all these things I wanted to say. One of my neighbors, a quarter mile from me, I think almost every one in their family has a hearing aid, including their kids. What does it do? I've Googled it, I can't get an answer. What does it do? What does the low frequency vibrations do to hearing devices? We can say till we're blue in the face that these things, there's no scientific evidence that support depression, anxiety, sleep loss, da 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 da. I'll tell you one thing, I don't want to hear a refrigerator running in my bedroom all the time. And if it's the noise level of a conversation, there are times when my wife does not want to be talked to, right? When we drive to South and West Minnesota, all we see is 90 red lights, because we always get there late, flashing in unison as we pull up to her family farm. It is gross. I may be the only one in here that I have two reasons, and only two reasons. I don't want to see them. And what brought me into this fight is the concern of our towns, villages, unincorporated towns, cities. We put these two things too close and we can never expand our city limits. We have got to protect 2 miles. Give our cities the ability to expand. Olds, Iowa, for which I work in, has to have the ability in the future to expand. Do you know how close we could be to a distribution center or something else? But if these things surround that town, we can't do it. We have to think about those things. I am not against wind generation. I am not against solar power. But we have to have ordinance that protects our future ability to expand. I do want to say something, Joe. I know it's not to the board. I want us all, when this is said and done and these people are gone, that we don't know and are not going to think of us again, to come back together as neighbors. We're neighbors. We have to be neighbors. Planning and zoning, you're our neighbors. This is not about, in my opinion, a bunch of money that I'll never see, potentially. I might see some. This is about helping each other like our families have done for generations and our ancestors have done. So please keep that in mind. You know what I have found in Henry County on both sides of this issue? Planning and zoning people, our supervisors, Joe, everything you put in this, we have such talent in this community. Individuals here on both sides, such talent. My God, the talent that I've found in my neighborhood fighting this. That's really all I have. Remember that. Our ancestors supported each other. We protect this land. We married each other maybe too many times on Highway 78. But the important thing is, when this is said and done, we are neighbors again. I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Ken Madden.
My name is Ken Madden. My wife and I live at Terrace Lake, Crawfordsville, although we are participating landowners in Henry County. We've heard a bunch of conspiracy theories. One thing that is not a conspiracy theory is the fiscal imperative for Henry County. People putting signs up all over the place, no windmills in Henry County, don't suggest that somehow that has to be either increased taxes or reduced county services, the money that would come in from the wind farms. The other thing that I've never seen mentioned, there's a security imperative on regional energy development. Take it from a guy that's got 3 solar collectors on his farms and on his house. We are vulnerable to a grid that is increasingly archaic and vulnerable to nefarious nature forces. Regional security is improved by regional wind energy and energy development. Just a quick story. 90-some years ago, my grandfather had windmills on his farm. Everybody had windmills on his farm. But he didn't do it to feed his horses or bring water up. He had wind turbines. The batteries in his basement were bigger than the jury box there. They had running water, electricity, bathrooms on 2 floors when everybody else in the community was going to outhouses. They were independent of the grid before there was a grid. And I'm here to tell you, I'm a proponent of alternative energies. You can tell by my electric pickup out there and my electric car. Energy independence is something we should all think about, not to mention what it would do for Henry County.
Zach Greenbaum.
My name is Zach Greenbaum. I live on Clayton Avenue, south of Rome. Anecdotal, I lived off-grid for 6 years. All of this is a joke. The theme of my comments are in regards to the interface and the interaction between the constituents of this county and our local government. I inquired about it. We were looking into buying some property, and I called planning and zoning, and hey, if we put up a wedding venue, what do we got to do? Go before the Board of Adjustment, propose your business plan. They alert everybody that is in your area. They get 3 opportunities to discuss that to bring up negative impacts like sound, lights, hours of operation, and such. So in the back of your head, your neighbors are inquired on, this is a much bigger project. With that being said, I just want to thank everybody here, and you guys, thank you very much for opening this up, and thank you for all the research. These are incredibly intelligent people that are being marginalized tonight for spending countless hours of their personal and professional lives researching the cons and the truth about this type of project, and they are listening to the people in this country, our state, and the world who now have these industrial wind turbines in their lives, and they can do nothing about it. They're there. They have to deal with things like shadow flicker, which is being mocked tonight. And if you haven't researched it, that's what did it for me. Every night that you're going to be in this impact zone, 30 minutes the lights are being turned on and off every second. That's what it's like. And it's horrible to watch videos of people, not research, not paid off research, people who are sitting in their living room with the curtains drawn, and they can do nothing about it. They have nobody to talk to. So this interface, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate that you've opened this up. Some of the disputed facts, I don't have much time left, but if it's the sound of a refrigerator, you'll see permanent noise impact easement in these proposals that a participating person can get their neighbor to sign off on the noise levels being exceeded that is permanently on the deed forever. So the sound levels are going to be exceeded, the light's going to be exceeded, everything's going to be exceeded, and it's all in the code. So we know that's going to happen. Hog farms smell because we're a farming community, so that should be considered. The sound from grain dryers, it's harvest, and we all support that. So I'm just begging on behalf of the people, please listen to us, because we're here. Thank you.
Darren Fricky.
Hello, I really don't need the microphone. Darren Fricky, 102 North Holland in Winfield. Volunteer in the community, coach, raised 3 boys. That's why I really don't need the microphone. Coach in the gymnasium, you can hear my voice. That's kind of what everyone has the opportunity to do here today, is provide your voice. The only thing that I guess I wrote in summary is an aspect that in 2022, there was already ordinances written and accepted and voted on and passed. And those are things in which everyone put forth the same energy and effort that they have tonight. So my little scratches and notes don't compare to the well-planned and communicated presentations of others, but it is why we're here, and that's to have a voice. So thank you.
So, Wade Fisher. You have 6 minutes.
My name is Wade Fisher. I live at 1340 Kentucky Avenue. I am the fire chief of Olds Fire Department and the assistant chief of Winfield Fire Department. I am concerned about the risk of mechanical things that fail, and when they catch fire and they're very high in the air, it makes it very difficult for us to deal with them. We have been told by RWE in the past that we are supposed to let them burn. However, as we all know, harvest is coming, crops are dry. Any falling embers can create a fire that is extremely difficult to put out for the fire department. We have limited manpower, we're all volunteer. We have a hard time getting volunteers. If a fire were to break out and we had to chase it across a mile section, we would have to call multiple departments, which would leave those areas unprotected. If we had a second fire, we have to split our forces and do the best we can. Their fire doesn't respect property boundaries, it doesn't respect anything. Somebody's house could be burnt down. We would do our best, but we're just volunteers. There's only so many people to draw from in our communities to add to these numbers of our people. If we don't, all the training, all the equipment, especially equipment, cannot replace men on the ground. And like I said, we only have a limited number of people. And we're all volunteers. So if we have to leave somebody there for long periods of time to watch these things as they burn, that is somebody who's not at their job providing for their family. I would wish that the board would think about that when they set setbacks and height restrictions for these wind turbines.
Joe Mitchell, you have 9 minutes.
Good evening to the board. My name is Joe Mitchell. I'm a longtime resident of Henry County. I'm a property taxpayer, a property owner here in the county, and I'm proudly here supporting the rights of these landowners that sit here that want to have turbines on this land. First thing I want to say is I thank God every day that I live in America where we can have this discussion, where we can have these public hearings. There's a lot of places on earth that you can't do this, so I want to thank everybody that is here participating in this public discussion. I've served as the state representative here in this county prior to this for 4 years. I don't think I've been any more unpopular than I am right now, which is hard to believe, but it really seems like that. But that's okay, because I was born and raised and told that we should stand up for what we believe in, and this is what I believe in, and so, again, here tonight supporting these landowners. The first thing I want to talk about is, I believe that these people, many who are sitting on this side of the room, they have the ability to build what they want on their land and make money on their land. And that is their freedom to do so. I believe that is an American principle and ideal for them to be able to do that. And there's a lot of people tonight, I feel, that are treating landowners that want to have these turbines as children. They want to protect them from their own land. That's not how this works. They own that land. Somebody in their family or themselves worked their tail off to own that land, to buy those acres. They pay property taxes on that land. At what point in American history have we decided that landowners don't have the right to do what they want on their land to be able to make money? I was told today, and I've been told before this as well, and I've heard tonight, that this is all about money. That these farmers, they just want to make money. That's called capitalism. That's called America. That's the economic system we live in and we believe in. And I believe it. And I don't want to change it. I believe in capitalism. I believe in the free market. We've talked about tonight about people that receive handouts and tax credits and incentives from the government aren't true Americans. There's a lot of farmers in this room that receive subsidies in CRP land and for their crop insurance. So let's not start pointing fingers in that way. We talked to the assessor, so RWE, myself, went down to the assessors, this is last week. We went down there because I wanted to make sure that the numbers that they had for tax revenue coming to the county was correct. So I called up Nathan and I said, let's meet. We did. Their numbers were nearly right on the dot. And so what the assessor's office has right now for Waco Community Schools, and this is new money, this is not the backfill money that was talked about earlier, for new money is $250,000. Could be more, but it's $250,000 is what the assessor's office is estimating would go towards Waco Community Schools. That's a 6 to 7% increase in the current property tax budget for Waco. I'm a graduate of Waco. That is big money. That is money for new staff. That's money for new buildings. That's money for more raises for our teachers. They need it. As somebody that served in the state legislature, I will tell you that the state legislature is not sending enough money. They continue not to send enough money to our public schools. This is a way to fix that. We need to be solution oriented because there is a problem and there's not a lot of solutions on the table that I've seen. The other thing, the legislature passed property tax reform about a year ago. Was not very, the supervisors around the state were not very supportive of it because what it did was cap their growth and their spending at 3%. I'm not saying that was the right thing to do or not. I was not there, so you can't blame me. But they capped it at 3%. What that means is that from the numbers that the RWE team has and the assessor's office, we're looking at a 10 to 15% increase in the county budget. That money has to go back to you, everybody in this room, the property taxpayers in property tax relief. Because they can no longer spend more than 3% of growth in their budget. That means everyone here, if this project goes through, you will see property tax decrease. I just paid my property taxes yesterday. I don't like paying property taxes. I don't think anybody in this room probably does. And it'd be the first time in our lifetime that we'd ever see a property tax decrease. The last thing I want to talk about is we've had suggestions to the board about what the setbacks should be. Those setbacks would kill this project. Those setbacks that have been proposed are telling the landowners that they don't deserve to put what they want on their land. They do not deserve to be able to participate in our capitalist system right here in America. If it's any more than a third of a mile from an occupied structure, it is going to shut down this project. That means you could deny their rights as landowners. They may be the minority of landowners in the county, but they still have rights. We should then deny them those rights. Benjamin Franklin said, if you're willing to give up safety for liberty, you deserve neither. I agree with that. I agree with that notion. So I ask you today, please support these landowners and their rights to do what they want on their land. Thank you.
Melanie Yaley.
I'm Melanie Gailey. We live south of Mount Pleasant and own a farm in the southern part of the county as well. I appreciate the work that you have all done in this project. I served on the planning and zoning board for several years before moving out of state. And at that time, we implemented under Joe's guidance the comprehensive land use plan for Henry County that established policies for the development of land in the unincorporated areas of our county. And with great consideration was given to the long-term long-term effects. And I'm gonna reference section 11. The land use regulation provides a way to classify and separate what land can be used for. It is a mechanism for the county to promote growth, protect our land, provide services for citizens, and ensure proper land uses. Goes on to say existing land use. The terrain in the northern, eastern, and south central region of the county is flatland and suited for intensive agricultural uses. It also reads future land use and recommendations, agricultural. The majority of the land in Henry County is used for agricultural purposes. Quality agricultural land should be preserved for agricultural land uses. Now, when we were living away in Texas, I made the trip driving from Houston up to southeast Iowa many times. And as I drove across acres of barren land in North Texas and Oklahoma and saw those wind farms, I thought, what a great use of that land. I don't think this is a good use of our land. We can respect people's property rights, but also we have to be respectful of the mega size that this wind farm is proposing. That's the issue to be concerned with. If a wind turbine the height of New London's, fine. Anyone wants to do something for their personal use on their land, fine, that's well within the rights. But the size of the structures involved is a concern, that and taking away from the very fertile land that we were blessed to have in our area.
Stephanie White had 3 more minutes seated with her, she wants 3 more minutes.
I was asked to read this article from the Access Energy Corporation titled Landowners Know the Facts Before Signing a Solar Project Lease by Tyler Cobb. If you're a landowner in rural Iowa, you may have received solicitations offering land lease options for proposed solar projects. Often these letters are offered attractive per acre rental payments for various phases of long-term proposed projects, promising steady and predictable income. However, like with all contracts, the devil is in the details. Before signing an agreement, we encourage you to do some homework and seek legal counsel to protect your rights. Most of these letters are coming from companies outside of Iowa looking to lease land for future solar projects. We have noticed that many of these letters refer erroneously to Iowa law, referencing legislation Senate File 2356 that did not pass last session. Some solicitations falsely claim local support for their solar initiative or that electric output that would somehow benefit your neighbor or the local electric cooperative. We have also seen letters that deceptively include endorsements attributed to the Iowa Farm Bureau. IFB's, or the Iowa Farm Bureau's legal team is working to remove these perceived endorsements. Please consult your legal counsel before signing any agreement or contract. Your legal counsel can help explain the benefits and disadvantages of these agreements, answer any questions that you have, and help negotiate fair and equitable terms. These long-term agreements can give the solar companies exclusive options and control of your land for decades. Spending some extra time upfront to better understand the terms and conditions of the proposed agreements can save you significant time, money, and headaches in the future. Thank you for your time.
All right, that concludes our list.
I was on that list, Joe.
I had you down as ceding your time to.
No.
All right, well, go ahead.
I probably don't need a microphone. I've been known for this quite a few times. My name's Bob Beechak. I live 2133 Racine Avenue, Mount Union, Iowa, in the Canaan Township. And that's like in the Bible, the land of Canaan. Don't forget that. Our kids are the 5th generation on that farm. My wife's great-grandpa bought the farm. He rented it to my granddad for a couple of years. My mother even lived in the old house when she was a child. And then her dad and her kids and our kids made 5. Some of you know it, some of you don't know it. I'm the current chair for the New London Municipal Utilities. I've heard New London talked about three times here tonight. Their tower is 415 to the top of the blade. The only difference is the energy from our tower is used by New London, Danville, and Yarmouth. It is not a commodity to be sent to California, Texas, or Chicago. I really feel for you people that signed the ground up. You were given a bad contract. The contract we have, and if I go over 3 minutes, I hope to add you to. The ground we signed up with the farmer, he took to his lawyer, and the farmer drafted it up in the lease agreement. In the lease agreement, when they decommissioned that turbine, New London Municipal Utilities has a posted bond, they have to remove the turbine. Now it goes further. I believe RWE has told these people that signed up, they're gonna lose the first 4 feet of the concrete, or is it 5? 4? But then you're going to have the rest of the concrete in your ground. And we know what that does to the subsoil moisture in farm. We know what it does to the flow of the water. Now, the next thing the farmer had put in his contract was not only is all the concrete and steel removed, even the roadway will be removed. The roadway will be subsoiled and brought up. I notice it's gonna be my time, Joe. Would you like to hear some more people?
I'll need my time, and my wife needed me, Rob.
Okay, all concrete approved, all buried cables will be removed. Even the roadway, all the ground will be ripped and subsoil. Yes, we didn't have zoning when they built it. And they wish they did. We've had problems with vibration, wind noise, flicker. One lady says she can even feel her kitchen counter vibrate sometimes. In Melanie's information she gave the board there, there's research from the European Wind Energy Academy. I did a lot of research given Melanie. Subseismic vibrations can be felt 15 kilometers on the large turbines. Currently, they are boring holes around the bases of these turbines and putting different substances in it to quiet down the vibrations. There's a lot of study that has not been done by RWE and others to see what the whole picture is. And one passing note, yesterday, September 16th, BP, I'm sure you all know who BP is, they decided they're going to sell all of their onshore wind turbines in 7 states and get out of the business. Maybe RWE should research BP's sites, because they even have transmission lines. It's up for sale. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate your time.
Need a motion to go out to public hearing then. Anybody want to make a motion to have one? Get a second, all in favor of? Aye. Aye. Opposed? We're out of public hearing. Commission has a document from the Board of Supervisors, with their thoughts, as to the changes that they were looking to see in the ordinance going forward. That's
The board has a copy, this was what was posted online, the document the supervisors put together with their recommendations for how they'd like to see the ordinance put together. This is the base for the commission to start from. They're welcome to change that in any way they'd like, or not change it at all. It's up to the commission to go through that and make their recommendations. What they have will be a recommendation to the board of supervisors. It's up to the supervisors whether they or not they take that recommendation, and then they'll have their own public hearing once they receive that recommendation.
Each section of this.
It's totally up to the commission as to how they approach that document. Well, I don't want to try to set, I don't want to fix it, put it back.
Can you use the microphone, please?
Speaking out here.
Can you hear me now?
No.
How about now? Okay, can we hear now? Okay. I'm Jim Nicking. If you've known from the January meetings, my name is on a lot of the things in favor of RWE. I have learned a lot since that point in time. I am no longer in favor of them. So my motion is that we take out Title 6, Chapter 2, 11, 2 through 6, and with a standalone ordinance that the watchman provided, that they had their legal team draw up. For me, that's what I want to put in there. I was told that we cannot just say no. I don't know why. I was never given a good reason why we just can't say we don't want a county in this, or RWE in here. There is nothing stopping any individual landowner from going out, buying his own turbine and putting it on his ground. He can buy one 800 foot tall with 300 foot blades on it, and we can't stop it. But that's his, it's not a commercial one. And we're trying to put a commercial one in ag land that was not, to me, it shouldn't be there. So to go back to read, hopefully I can say this so it makes sense. I do want to repeal Title 6, Chapter 2, Section 11, 2 through 6. Take that out and put in what the watchman, their legal team put in. We do not have time to go through all of that tonight, so that is my motion. That's how I want to handle it.
So your motion is to not approve what supervisors have drawn up?
Correct. And we can make that separate if I just say I don't want to approve it, I'm good with that.
Are you looking at proposing something? Just nothing, or just repeating all that? I mean, is this the adjusted thing that we did years ago?
That's the adjustment what we did years ago. I believe your motion was to repeal that and then replace it with some other document?
The legal document that, well, not, the document that the watchman sent all of us, that would replace these rules. So if you want to do that separate, I'm fine with it, but I will not vote for, accepting these what the supervisors gave us.
So, you want to make a motion right now to not accept this at all? Correct? What the board of supervisors approve?
Yes.
Any seconds to that?
I just want to clarify, please, the motion, right? Your motion was to repeal the existing ordinance and replace it with some document that you received.
That was my original motion.
That's still a motion here.
The chair just asked me if we only wanted to not approve what the supervisors gave us. So, for this motion, I do not accept what the supervisors gave us. I want to do something different.
We have a second.
I'll second that.
All in vote? Say aye.
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 Kim, I could.
Votes accounted for how many, please?
What?
Votes accounted for how many? 4? Are there 4 votes? Thank you.
Yes, they did. I hope to find it momentarily.
Jim, if this is a document that hasn't been presented to the public, I assume it should
We
be.
need a mic, please.
This document apparently has been provided to the commission, and it hasn't been provided to the public, there has been no public. If we're gonna discuss this document, I would suggest that we table this so that we can publish this document, so the public has time to go through it and see what it says. And we can come back for a work session for the discussion after the public has the time to.
If we can't pass it, that's our choice then. Is that correct?
I mean, you can recommend it, but it's a document that no one has seen, and no one knows what's in it. For transparency, I suggest that we have some mechanism to let public.
Sounds like what happened to me in January.
You can make the motion, it's up to the, you can make the motion, it's up to the commission.
I will make the motion that we will use the Henry County Watchman LLC, the articles that they gave. I will make a motion so that we use the Watchman from Henry County, the Henry County Watchman LLC. I will move that we make that the rules for the wind energy to come into Henry County.
mean, can we pass or do that, or do we need to give the public time to read it?
My recommendation would be that you give the public time to read.
Okay, I'm asking.
You could go ahead if you would. Thank you for transparency.
Yeah, I didn't get a second, so go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that, we give them time to review it, it is presented to the public.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye. Do we wanna set a time specific, come back and address this?
Yeah.
If I could do a motion, when you guys wanna come back and address this after, I'll have a chance to put it out to the public. Well. It doesn't require a second public hearing, there is no specific time. I would publish it on the website, and have, and if I can get a copy from someone, I will, have it available in my office also for anybody who wants to read it and have it online. No, it was not mailed to me. Apparently it was just mailed to the commission. So, your first motion was to accept, was to use this document, correct? And that time-
Yes,
that
but I
time
never
for
failed to
second.
get a second.
So we're looking for a date to, maybe Barb will be here too. I'd like it to be on a Wednesday if possible.
Can someone repeat the motion, just so we know what was said?
What?
Can you repeat what the motion was that did you pass the motion, or your?
The last motion was passed. It was a motion to table the discussion until the public has had time to read this proposed document.
Okay, thank you.
So are we trying to pick a date?
I think he was trying to pick a date to come back.
Wednesdays work good for me too. I got games on. I'm busy.
Yes, Wednesday works for me.
No, I don't think that's enough.
I would say at least a week.
So that'd be the 25th.
The 25th, do you want to reconvene on the 25th?
This month?
Yes, a week from tomorrow.
I can do it then after that. I'm in combine. So, you want to make that a motion for next Wednesday at 6 p.m.?
Anybody want to make a motion to meet, next Wednesday at 6 o'clock?
I'll make a motion to meet next Wednesday.
Second on that? All in favor?
Aye.
You'll get hold of Barb, correct, Jim?
Excuse me?
You'll get hold of Barb?
Yes, I will let Barb know.
Here?
Yeah, we'll do it here again. So we have a motion to table this until 6 p.m. Wednesday the 25th. And that will be for their discussion of this new document.
If they choose to adopt the document or make changes, then will there be public hearings following that? Or how will that process, what's the process after that? Or you can move to adopt at that time?
If there's a recommendation, we go to the Board of Supervisors and they would hold a public hearing.
Okay. Thank you.
not positive. I will have to do some research into that, and I'll let the commission know, since I know for sure how we're gonna handle that.
I thought today was a public hearing for the current document that existed. If we're voting on a new document, we're not gonna have a public hearing to address the new document. Here, we have to wait until it goes to the board of supervisors.
I'm going to do some research and find out where we stand on
Okay.
that.
I understand. Okay.
I have not had that come up before, so before I say anything, I wanna make sure I know what I'm talking about.
I understand. Thank you.
What we rejected was what the board of supervisors proposed earlier. And basically, see what the next proposal is. See if we agree on that one or not.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Anything on this other matter?
I don't have anything else on the
Okay.
agenda.
We have any other business?
Not that I'm.
Okay, anybody wanna make a motion to adjourn for tonight? Second? Third? All in favor? Aye. Thank you for coming, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
As you can tell, there was a lot of passion at the Henry County Courthouse on Tuesday, September 17th, 2024. After watching this, what are your thoughts? Have you had a thought one way or another, which way you're leaning, what you support, what you don't support? Has your mind been changed? Looks like some people's minds have been changed. Now, I hope you enjoy this episode, and if so, I hope you give it a like. Make sure you follow and subscribe to the podcast on whatever podcast platform you're watching this on. And thank you for watching. And I want to thank our sponsors, Griner Auto Body, Car Doctor, McDonald Boneyard, Hinshaw Trailer Sales, Girling Repair, B&B Propane, and the family of Jet Stops, and Blue Dog Lawn Care. I'm your host, John Bain. Stay friendly, Southeast Iowa.